to dig in, but time is limited, so I'm gonna be more specific. We're gonna go more into the technical stuff, okay? Which is very interesting. Also, they can see the process. So, guys, for you, what is the hardest part in the phase of making a movie or a documentary? Pre-production, production, post-production. We need them to make a movie work. Which one is the one that we should pay more attention? Besides that, we should pay attention to all of them. So we got the technical, so that they know the process a little bit of making a film. Okay, we start with.
Sorry, I will speak Ukrainian. Я думаю, що найважче завжди зробити перший крок. Подолати страх і почати щось робити. А далі це вже питання професіоналізму і наполегливості.
So the hardest part of the process for Yaroslav is the first conceptualization of it, and then figuring out the path of how it kind of forms and the way that it goes from there. But it's always like the first instance of creating this idea for him.
From a documentary perspective, I'm already working on my next one. It's the research. It takes up an inordinate amount of time. I think if you put a lot of the work into what is the story you're trying to tell and research it well. And of course the curveballs are, as you mentioned, you do the interviews, and what transpires in the interviews can open up and peel back layers of an onion and lead you down into different paths. And so the next phase of that post-interviews is in the editing, So there's many story avenues you can take. You start with one idea and it takes a slight different path or a different form towards the end. And making lots of hard choices about what stays in, what doesn't, what serves the story well, what is the story now, and how well an audience will receive it, and what are people learning in the process of that.
And I totally agree with you. Most important, for me, it's the writing first, to have the idea and what kind of story you have to count, and the editing, because it could change. You take, as you said, you take away, and then after you realize that, there is maybe another way better. And the difficult one is to know what kind of, if you have money to do, it depends what kind of film you want to do, and to think of that before doing something, because when you create something, when you do something, you deliver it. And what you're going to deliver is going to be seen by people and judged by people. And as director, I didn't want to, so it took a long time for me to do my first one, because I wanted to do it exactly like I wanted to see it on the big screen. So I waited a long time. So think about that when you're a director. Because even when you do a long movie and after, because you will be judged, and then they're gonna put you in a square and say, okay, this is this kind of director. That's the most important for me.
I think definitely post. It was on this project was the hardest. Pre-production was enjoyable, doing research, learning about interesting people, interesting topic. Production was fun. Got to go diving with sharks and all sorts of other animals and interviewing interesting people, so that was not too bad. Post, oh man, not so fun. We had quite a few challenges, technical challenges, because we were using quite a bit of found footage or donated footage. So we had everything from cinema cameras to a GoPro, and not a new GoPro, like a really old shit GoPro, which was really powerful footage. But so we had to find a way to use it, but the colour was terrible, obviously the resolution was terrible. So technically it was a challenge, and then also figuring out what doesn't make it. And you're trying to keep it to a reasonable length, but you've got hours and hours and hours and hours of interesting, knowledgeable, smart people saying interesting, knowledgeable, smart things. It's hard. It's hard to know what absolutely has to stay and what's not critical. That was tough.
Well, for us, our film, the first really hard part was always development that I share with you guys, it's the hardest part. In our film, it was really hard to convince that the film could be done because it was a pan-lighting story and it has air action and we're not Marvel. so actually, Jose right here in front of me, like every project is different, but like, he has to learn to fly. And this is something I always deny in the development process. Actors don't fly. They act, but he had to, because he had to experience it, he had to live it, he had to become a pilot. And then convincing him was hard too. But every project has its risks, and convincing the government took me 5 years. Like I had the funding, had the script, but getting like the approval, like saying that, like getting the green light, took me 5 years to say that this can be done. You know? And we did it, and it was really fun.
I've been primarily an actor most of my career. I've just got into writing and directing now, so I know storytelling, but so writing the story, working with the actors, rehearsing, all of that was really easy for me. I love that. I would say the pre-production is the hardest part. I think it's the most important part. Just because if you don't get it when you shoot it, you don't have it for editing. And so for me, I didn't know a lot. I had to really rely on the people around me. I had to be willing to say, I don't know, to ask the questions, to really talk with the DP, really work things out in a more specific way than I'd ever been challenged with before. We also had a limited amount of time to shoot, so I had to be extremely specific about shots and choices and all that technical stuff. And I learned a lot, but it served me because in the editing, it was there. And I would say just really overdo your pre-production planning and shot list, and then you toss it out, you get on the set, and it's like, oh, we're gonna shoot it differently. But I can't say enough, really over-prepare as a director so that you can kind of let go and trust the actors, trust the artists around you, because you want to build a team that you love, that you can say, give them space to create. I don't think your job as a director is to control everything. I think your job is to really encourage everyone to bring their best and give them the space to really create. So I learned a lot, but yeah, the pre-production blew my head apart. But the editing was a blast. I loved it, so that was fun.
So I agree with you, Doc. It's like so important. Everybody has to kind of be on the same page, and this is our job. It's like to have them prepare. So I'm like debating between like pre-production because it's so stressful, because you gotta get everything ready and you have to approve the script and you have to approve everything and you have to choose your crew because it's really important who's doing what also. So that's a hard decision, but then at the same time, post-production, like cutting minutes out of your film, killing your babies, you know, and like being able to kind of like, I don't know, it's just like such a sorry mindfuck. It's like so hard, like do the whole like post-production thing and like making all these decisions and then like, what if you take it this direction and then somebody tell you no, but what if you do it like this? And it's just like locking your movie takes so much time, and hearing more and more opinions, it's just like being so confusing. So yeah, on one hand you don't want to listen, but then somebody puts you a bug and then you see a whole world. And then you're like changing your movie and then like, no, I have to go back and what do I choose? So, post-production, okay.
I'm not gonna speak for everybody here, but to me, the hardest thing about making a movie is money, trying to get money. That's number one, okay? Number one. And then, documentary filmmaking, you know, I don't know, it's interesting. So obviously it's real intriguing. So there's a couple things that are tough. I also edit my films, and so this film I had 18 interviews that were an hour long, so 18 hours of footage that I was gonna chop into like 60 minutes. And like everybody's been saying, like up here, those hours sitting with these amazing people telling me their life story, like these are really in-depth interviews, like very like intense. And loving every single word that they're saying, that's hard to look at that and go, all right, that's better than better, or that's the best. So that becomes like difficult to do, you know? They're saying so much amazing shit that I can't leave it all in. And then I always go with my whole thing is like, I want to make it, I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be a Netflix series. All right, it'll be 18 hours. All right, we're gonna keep it all in. So then, you know, I wrestle with that. But anyway, I think money's number one, the hardest thing to do. Hands down.
Yeah, I've been an actor for since 1986. Joined the union then, and then I've been directing, but it's all stage stuff. So during COVID, I made the transition to film, which is a whole different ballgame completely. Except some of the principles apply. And what I found is a very early career, we'll use that lightly with my age, but an early career director is that I've taken a lot of classes, there's master classes online with Alejandro and David Mamet and Jodie Foster and Werner Herzog, and I found Werner Herzog the most applicable because I'm not coming in with a lot of money, and he does his films sometimes just two people on set, just him and a sound person. So I thought it was very helpful. But one of the things that he said is you can fix everything except the actor. So I think that's the most important thing. I'm not going to talk about what's the most difficult because I haven't been doing it long enough. But the actor, if you don't get the right, if you don't cast the right people, you're done for. For myself, I had the lovely Alejandra Garcia, and she was just wonderful. We worked in 2 continents, as she mentioned, and I wrote the shots out, and she delivered them. Then the second part, the most important process I found anyhow, is the editing room. You can make or break the film in the editing room. Ours was principally made in the editing room just by cutting these things, doing so much cutting and interspersing, getting the rhythm right, all of that. So that's my contribution to it.
Yeah, well, I agree with all of you. And for me, that I'm also starting to work in my next one, and it's like, I think that, wow, you think, okay, I have many things to say, so how I will say, how are we constructing my characters, how they will be, like all this. First, it's really, really hard. But for me, like the most frustrating thing was the same as he told us. For me, it's like I never gave a birth. But for me, it's like you give a birth and you have a baby, and you look at the face and you see, oh man, what I have done. And then, like the baby starts to getting a face, color, sounds, and everything, and you say, okay. So this is the worst. So yeah, for me, was the hardest. Because it's this, like you find the team, you find your characters, you find the actors, you find the money, but then you look at and say, oh my god, I don't know if this is nice. Oh, and then I forgot to also publicity in my short movie. It's called The Soraya Secrets. El Secreto de Soraya will be screened this Friday at 1. So I hope you also can go.
I'm sure all of us encountered this, but just know that when you hit those dead ends, those roadblocks that seem like they're going to kill your film or creative challenges that really get in your way, every time I faced that and then lived with it and found a way around it, it made the film better. So I had rights with music, I had all these problems that I thought were going to kill the film. And just know, when you get in that dark space and you think, time, I can't do this, this is never going to happen. Just keep open and keep looking for the answer, and you'll find it. It really, I think it makes everything better, those challenges.
Amazing guys, huh? I really love all of you that came here to Barcelona. We're gonna get a couple of questions. So actors, be tricky. We got the first one right here. Is there a right answer?
Hello. Hello. Congratulations to every one of you, because sometimes even with or without funding, making a movie to make it possible is so difficult. So congratulations and thank you for bringing your stories. Also a very quick ad. I'm Carlos Soto, the editor of the Blázquez, which is the following movie. And something very special about one of you were telling to tell the story of hope and love. The directress, which is unfortunately not here, Talissa, she wanted to tell a story that changed her life because of a Mexican ancient ritual. And she came with me, I'm the editor, and she told me I have this amount of hours of footage and interviews, and I want to tell this story because it changed my life with love. And I say, let's do this, because this is the core of the film, to tell something, to tell something that is really happening to you, even if you are a filmmaker or not. So listening about the editing group process, the post-production and everything, to have the courage of all of you and of all of us to bring the stories to the cinema is like, thank you so much. And stay 10 minutes more for watching Tompos. No, it's a congratulations.
So guys, another question, don't be shy.
My first question is, how do you choose your crew? What things you think are more important to choose who will be the editor, the art director? What is the things you have in your mind? It's about trust, about talent, it's a mixed things.
Дуже важливо мати свою команду, це дуже важливо працювати з людьми, з своїми однодумцями. І такі однодумці знаходяться в процесі твоїх попередніх фільмів і робіт. І кожну таку людину треба берегти і йти з нею далі по творчому шляху.
So he finds it's really important to find crew members who have similar, like-minded experiences when it comes to film. So he's looking at what they worked on previously, and once you've found the perfect group, you kind of hold them as close as possible to you because you guys share the same similar creative processes.
I'll answer it two ways. For this particular film, for Outside In, I couldn't get a crew because we were shut down, and so I actually shot my film actually on an iPhone X, if you could believe that. I then went and learned how to edit, so I was not an editor before, even though I had directed, and obviously shot it myself. So it was sort of one-man band. But I did reach out to some actors. I have a narrator, Marc in the film. He's an actor, a great actor, who narrated parts of that. I found a woman called Wang Ping, who's a famous poet in the US, award-winning poet, and she graciously allowed me the rights to her poem that's featured in the documentary as well. I scoured for music. I know one of the guys here was talking about rights, and that's always, I was a musician myself, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll use some of my old music from my band, and it just didn't lend itself to the documentary. So I found this some music online, and spent 2-3 weeks searching for the composer, who turned out to be an Indian guy living in Chennai. And I reached out to him, and so online we, late night calls, early morning calls. That was the most collaborative process I had in there because he intuitively understood composing. As he was composing the music, India itself was going through its worst lockdown and worst COVID outbreak. He had friends dying while making the music. It was a very bizarre situation. So having him look at New York the previous year, infused the music in the piece, and just working collaboratively with him was amazing. And then I reached out to, you know, a woman called Stacey Eagle. She's a well-known fashion designer for Boy Meets Girl. She lent some masks, so it was a collaboration thing. But outside of my documentary, I mean, generally speaking, I think, you know, getting the right creative team can make the world of difference. You know, that they believe and understand what film you're trying to make is important. Having the right DP who understands the tone and the colors and sort of how you want to film this thing. When I'm not editing, getting in, and because I've done this now, I feel like I'm going to be more masterful around shooting the right stuff to be able to edit well and have a lot of coverage to be able to tell and give me options in the editing space. You know, it's a whole collaborative team. Everybody on a phone set, in my opinion, is an artist, all sharing the same goal, which is to, you know, create a film that people will enjoy watching and hopefully learn something from.
Yes, for me, I'm very vigilant because I'm trying to find the person who gonna share the same vision. Because if you don't pick up a good person, in technical or actor or actresses, they maybe can do a movie in your movie. It's like an orchestra. You have you need everybody in this orchestra, all the instruments, but there's one chief. And the difficulty is when you start, and when you're a young director, is not to be eaten by others when you create, because you're fragile, and you don't have to show that you're fragile. You have to show that you're the boss, you know what you want to do, you know what you have to do. And if someone had to ask you something, you have to have the answer. And to answer to all the questions they're going to ask you. And if you show this, it's going to be okay. But if you don't know, and it starts by someone who said, maybe it could be better to put the camera this angle than that, so you're dead. And it's not going to be your movie at the end. It's going to be a movie, but not yours. So with the 2 shots I did, I really took care of that. We felt the other way because really the person got the same vision, we were in the same fight. And for example, the second one, World of Lifetime, the World of Lifetime, we did it with really few money. And it was, as it was in the suburb from Paris. And for example, the cinematographer, the first one I had came from the television. And he said, oh, I can help you with a lot of material, I can have this camera, I can have this thing, this shit, this thing. He said, oh, okay. So we're going to do it with 5,000 euros. We're going to take a Steadicam. And I went, oh, no, but and this guy, you know, I found a Steadicam. He knew the same Steadicam than me. This guy, he pushes the other guy to hesitate and to put him on his way and his point of view, not mine. So, one new director, take care of that, and if it happens, and it could happen 2 days before shooting, like it arrived with the second shot, you have to say, it doesn't matter, I find another cinematographer, or I find another. And to reach your goal, to really choose the good person, and if you feel something before starting, change.
I maybe don't have the best answer for this because it was a very, very tiny crew, only a few of us. But one experience I think is worth sharing, and that was in post. We were a little bit, we sort of had ourselves tied in knots with the narrative, and we kind of were so deep in the project, couldn't really see the forest for the trees anymore. So we brought in a consulting editor, a talented, experienced editor to come in and consult, and he watched it a few times and came with some notes, and it was like, the things he suggested fixed it immediately, and it was kind of like why didn't I think of that? But yeah, I think that showed the importance of having professional, knowledgeable, experienced people at the right time can be really, really key, and turn it from something that I wasn't that happy with to a much better end product.
Yeah, it's building your team and making films like a cookie. You need the best ingredients, and you need a base. Like you always go with the garlic and the butter, which is your team, and these are the people you've grown up with, and they're the roots of the tree. And then you find I love to work with good experienced professional actors. In this project, for example, I ended up being the DP, and it's just like, oh man, you're wearing so many hats. Well, the thing, the air stuff, it had to be done by someone that knew what could be done. Like there's safety, technical stuff, so I ended up shooting it too. But like my production designer, this is my first directing, but I've been a producer. Usually producers buy the go to the supermarket and get everything in. But I've learned that, like get the best ingredients and get people that's committed to the project. Maybe not to your vision sometimes, but sometimes when people, is what you said, like they say, no, fuck it, it's not that way. And then you end up opening to some experienced advice and things come out better. People that's committed to do the best for the project, not even for you as a director, and be people you trust, people reliable you trust, passion, and talent.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. For me, I want to be fans of the people I work with, not just people I'm hired for a job. And the times I've had difficulty is when I was kind of forced by a producer to hire somebody that I wasn't a fan of, and then we ended up having to switch anyway. But I would also say for all of you here at this festival, like my first film, when I was going to festivals, I was just keeping mental notes of like what films I loved, what cinematographer I liked, different films and different people that I was like, someday I want to collaborate with those people. And I would meet people, and then on my second film, I actually got to work and bring some of those people in. So keep your eye open, for the films you see this week of like what really inspires you, what is direction, what is cinematography, whatever. And I would say your main key position for me is the first AD. Your first AD runs the show and gets your shots done and keeps you on track. And I swear to God, I had my two films that had fantastic AD, and they saved my ass. So pick a good AD.
Yeah, creative people is so important. So I definitely, like once I set up my style, I want to find the right people that can represent that style, right? So you look at painting and different artists create different kind of painting, different kind of art directors are, sometimes really good in more specific thing than others. So definitely I like to look at the style and see is that fit to what I see that they can do, so our work in chemistry can already be closer. And then, more than important than anything, it's that we all, I agree with you, say that they will support the film and its message. They will see what am I trying to do, and they will join the tribe, like I told them. So my movie is to empower normalized Black trans women. 2020 and 2021 was the deadliest year for Black trans women of color worldwide. So a lot of trans women has been murdered because they are trans. So it was really important to tell a story that have love and hope and connection and unconditional love story, that we are all humans and we all connect as humans to create equality. So when I recruit my crew, and I've been very lucky to work with award-winning sound designer and like a lot of like very well-respected artists in Los Angeles, that a lot of them have volunteered their time and volunteered themselves to do it, or have been lowered their rates in a very, very dramatic, about 80 to 90% low, because they believe in the story and because we created a tribe of a change. So it became a very interesting way to recruit the people by everybody wants to chip in to do something for making a better world. So I think this is a really important thing to have like a really crew. So when we all got together, it just felt like we are a party that, you know, came to do a change, and there was a very, very nice process of like making a change and creating something that will make the world better. We're all on the same page with that. And obviously I'm trying to be the person to see that, you know, you have a good vibe. And because sometimes they say, yeah, I believe it, but then when you class, like, you know, they had a different idea. So it's always nice. I always try to like have a phone call or two with like, you know, the head department to kind of see that everything is cool and we're friends and it's all groovy. So.
Yes, so the crew, that's what we're talking about, the crew. The crew's that's a rough one. I think that to me, I'm like, to me, it all comes down to communication. So you have to communicate what you want, communicate the feeling, the vibe, everything about the specific film that you're making. And if you can communicate well, then I think that you get people on board, which is what everybody's talking about. Like, get on board for this fun little journey we're going on, and let's have a good time. Anyway. Yeah, that's about all I got to say about that.
Hi, as I said, I'm primarily a playwright, and so for the past 30, 40 years, I've collected a lot of actors, directors, and sound people, and light people, but not for film. But they're still the people that I can contact. I'm also the artistic director of an online international theater company called Tiger's Heart Playwright on Facebook if you're interested in working with actors from around the world. And that's basically my basic resource, because as I said also, I'm really just a two-man operation. I wrote, directed, and acted in the last film. In the film before that, I just directed. So I'm not out there looking for a lot of resources because I don't have the money to pay those resources. And there are some volunteers, of course, for similar work, but that's kind of the level I'm at. And anyone else who's at that level, I would suggest that. Accumulating as many friends and other people that you run into as you're going along, and then lean on.
Well, to find a crew is something also really hard. And for me, what I think is that, like, I love cinema, I love making film, but there's so many ego. So, like, I prefer to work with someone that's just starting, like me, of course. But that the person also is, like, really love, love what is doing. Maybe we just will commit mistakes, but I prefer this, as you said, that to finish is so much work, it's so hard, like to be without sleeping, without eating, like, and then when you find someone else that loves your story, then you think, come on, I'm not crazy alone. So it's really nice. So then I think I prefer someone that's not so maybe professional, but that will be beside me. And I had a really, really bad situation with my AD, so then I will take your advice for the next, because it was a horrible experience. But the other crew, like all the people, like we were not professional at all, but we got a really nice synergy. So like we needed to do more hours then, of course, normal, and everybody were there. So like for me, it's this. I prefer to find people that really loves what I want to talk about than someone that's really professional and think that is better than me or whatever. And I hate this kind of ego that unfortunately, and what we do is something that is really normal. So for me, like to find the crew is important.
I want to make a comment on what you said, and because I am like I have a company for 20 years.
You want to do cookies with them?
No, exactly, but that's the base, that's how you build the base. The garlic and the butter is the people that start with you and you trust, and then maybe it was not the AD on this project, but maybe it was the sound person, and that's the base. and then you bring in all the other ingredients. But the people that you grow up with, like they stick, because it takes a village to make film, and it's all about that.
Yes.
Yeah, and working with the same people over and over again, like you build that team, and it makes the production so much smoother because you don't have, you can communicate, you can't really understand each other without talking. I mean, you just do it.
Actually, I had the same experience with the AD, the most terrible AD. Like the first 2 days was a nightmare. We just didn't get along. It was just like a whole fight. I tried to do everything, like, you know, feed her with whatever she wants, ask her what she wants to eat, like, just give it to her. Didn't work. And in the last day, I had to be like, okay, I need to, like, she's toxic in the set. So I had to let her go. And I'm like, what am I doing with no AD? Like, I was shoot tomorrow night, just like it was better to not have her. And the producer was the AD, but like you said, when you keep the right people that want to make it happen, it's the producer is the AD, then it works.
Yes. So guys, I would love to have more questions. You know, this is fantastic, so much learning from here. But time, right? The same way we should. Just think about the end of the day. So thank you very much. What we will do with our directors, huh? Let's talk about